Just ahead on American Black Journal, a new exhibit about African-American baseball players who were not allowed to play in the major leagues during decades of segregation. Plus, a major fundraising campaign for Detroit public school students. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Ally and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. There's a new exhibit at the Detroit Historical Museum that chronicles the history of the Negro baseball leagues. The Detroit Stars was one of the Negro League teams that played during a time when African Americans were banned from the major leagues. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Detroit Stars, and the museum exhibit features the team's legendary outfielder, Norman "Turkey" Stearns. The Detroit Stars played at Hamtramck Stadium, which still stands today and is scheduled for a major restoration. Here to tell us more are Karen Hudson Samuels, who is vice chair of the Black Historic Sites Committee, Norman "Turkey" Stearns' daughter, Joyce Stearns Thompson, Gary Gillette, who is founder of the Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium, and Alana Rue, who is CEO of the Detroit Historical Society. Welcome, all of you, to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Karen, I'll start with you. Tell me about this exciting exhibit.
Well, it started when Gary Gillette, who was invited to a meeting of the Black Historic Sites Committee, and he said, well, there is this historic Hamtramck Stadium where one of the few stadiums still left in the country where Negro leagues were allowed to play. And so from that, we got involved because it was a centennial anniversary, 1919. And with the exhibit, we get to tell that story of the legendary teams, the players. The exhibit is up through September. So that's kind of how it started, and it really is a chance for the public to be educated about America's pastime.
Yeah.
It's a chapter of history that really this hasn't been told.
Yeah. Gary, you have been involved with this issue for a long time, I know.
About 10 years,
yeah. Talk about who the Detroit Stars were and why it's sort of significant to try to preserve that history.
Well, the Detroit Stars were founded in 1919. They were the first major Negro League team in Detroit. There would have been black teams coming through town to play white teams mostly, because it was better payday to play white teams, because then white fans would show up, right?
Right.
And in 1920, they were a charter member of the first major Negro League, the Negro National League. So next year we have the centennial of the founding of the Negro National League, which will be a national celebration. The Stars played in Detroit until '31, when they were a victim of the Great Depression along with the league. There was a new Detroit Stars team in '33, lasted a year. A new team in '37 lasted a year. It was really hard during the Depression. Major league teams struggled, and several major league teams almost went bust as well. So it's not peculiar to the Negro Leagues. But you can't tell the history of the African American community in Detroit without talking about the most popular sport, except for boxing. Joe Louis, who was, of course, a hero in Detroit and then an international hero. Baseball, the Negro Leagues were the big deal.
And your father, Turkey Stearns, is somebody who's closely associated with the Stars. It is one of my favorite historical baseball players, black, white, or whatever. Talk about what you remember about your father and him playing in these leagues.
Well, my dad was a great person. Unfortunately, my sister and I were born after he had stopped
he was
playing.
done, yeah.
So, you know, I get to hear the stories from other people, and he's had, all of his inductions have been posthumous. So he died in 1979, and he was inducted into the Afro-American Sports Hall of Fame in 1987, 2000, the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, 2007, Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, 2010, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, and we visited Kauffman Stadium, where the Kansas City Royals play. They have their own Hall of Fame, and he's inducted in the Cooperstown section. And also the Tigers put a permanent plaque in 2007.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, yeah.
And great father.
Yeah. Ilana, welcome to American Black Journal. This is the first time we're having you here as the new director over there. Talk about the importance of these kinds of exhibits at the museum.
Well, as you know, Stephen, our mission at the Detroit Historical Society is to tell Detroit stories and why they matter. And to have an opportunity like this to tell a story that really matters, that so many people don't know about, you know, is really remarkable. And it's very popular. As Karen said, it's open till the end of September. We're free all summer, so we really hope everyone comes down to Midtown to visit the museum. But this has been a great opportunity for really a remarkable partnership. The Historical Society and the Black Historic Sites Committee have been partners. We both celebrate our centennial in 2021, and the Black Historic Sites Committee celebrates their 50th the same year. So this has been a long-time partnership, but this is the first time that we're doing an exhibition together. And to partner as well with Gary and his group at the historic Hamtramck Stadium has been, you know, really a great experience for us in pulling together different organizations to tell a story that needs to be told.
Yeah. Gary, tell us what's going on with the restoration of Hamtramck Stadium.
Well, we raised money via patronicity.com social media earlier this year to restore the field, and we're now looking at exactly how to do that. We raised $115,000, which seemed like a lot, but when you start talking about the quality of baseball fields now, isn't necessarily that much. But we hope to have either later this summer, if not certainly next spring, a restored field. The grandstand is millions of dollars. And what we're waiting on there is a new master plan for Veterans Memorial Park in Hamtramck, which includes Hamtramck Stadium and the adjacent facility, Keyworth Stadium, where the Detroit City Football Club plays. A new master plan that ties all that together, and then the city and the school district owns Keyworth, and DCFC and us will be looking for those millions. So the field restoration is important to us. People do play there now. There are vintage baseball games. Many of the local kids play cricket there. There's a cricket pitch in right field, but it's not really suitable for actual games. You know, there's no scoreboards, there's no lines, there's nothing else.
And so is the idea to make it into a modern facility where you can do all of those things?
The idea is to make it into a community facility where people can play cricket and soccer, because that's the sports the kids in Hamtramck play. Also, people can play baseball. We hope to have the high school baseball team playing there next year, as well as vintage baseball teams. And we want the site to be a community asset like it once was, as well as an historic site that will teach people about the history of the African American community in Detroit, Hamtramck, and the Negro Leagues, and the importance to Detroit itself, as well as the black community.
Black Historic Sites Committee, remind viewers of some of the other work that you guys are up to.
Well, one of the things, Ilana mentioning an upcoming anniversary, the Black Historic Sites Committee was formed in 1971 by then Councilman Ernest Brown, and with the mission to preserve the history and tell the stories of African Americans. And so some of the other events that we're doing that are related to this exhibit is there is a Negro League film series. And so we have a film coming up on, let me get the date right, June 29th. And the title of the film says a lot about what it's about. Only the Ball Was White. It's a short documentary, and we have a panel afterwards. And Joyce is on the panel, Gary's on the panel, and Mike Tiger Price. And we talk about, in the film, it's about what it was like to travel and be a part of the Negro Leagues back in those days. It's narrated by Paul Winfield, but you hear from the actual ball players, you know, their stories of what it was like. So that's an example of another kind of activity. And we have bus tours. We had a bus tour of sites related to black baseball in Detroit, and Joyce said that there is a plaque of her dad on Comerica Park. There is a Michigan historical marker at Hamtramck Stadium,
At the stadium,
at the
sure.
stadium itself. And on our bus tour, she and her sister, we also went to their home on Carter Street. So there's a lot of history and activities that we get involved in, just related to this one story itself that's has to be told.
The museum's role in telling that story of Detroit, and then by extension, of course, African American Detroit, is a key pillar, I know, of the work that goes on there too.
It is, absolutely. Well, in this, there are two parts to the story. One is the fun and magic of baseball, and the other is the story of segregation, frankly, right? And so, as we move forward and as I, mature in my role here, it's really important to us at the Detroit Historical Museum that we tell all Detroit stories and that we're more equitable in the stories that we tell, and that's why partnerships like this are so important to us. I can't tell this story, but Joyce can, right? And the Black Historic Sites Committee can. And so, we invite everyone to come down and really check it out. I think, the students of Detroit, young kids, we were talking earlier, they're not so much into baseball these days, but gosh, it's really about the personal stories of the players where it really hits home.
Do you remember your dad talking about not being able to play in the major leagues and what that meant to him?
Yeah, he didn't dwell on that, but he talked about the segregation, the fact that they weren't allowed to play, and he felt that they were as good or better than the players that played in the major leagues. Well, certainly was, and I know they barnstormed the Detroit Tigers, all-star team barnstormed the Detroit Tigers, I think 13 times, and beat them 11 out of 13. Right? My dad was not bitter. I think he was disappointed that he missed out on that opportunity because there was no compensation, the monetary compensation that they deserved, they didn't get.
What do you think he would make of all of the hullabaloo about him now? I mean, he's much more celebrated now than he was then, right?
I've told people before, I think my dad would be in awe because he was a very conservative, low-key, reserved person. So he'd be kind of shocked, because when we went to the Negro Leagues reunion in 1979, and July 4th weekend, he got to see all the guys that were still alive. There were like 10 of them. And my dad had a hearing loss, and so when they were talking to him, he was excited to see them, and then when they realized it was him, Turkey, like they were like, oh, wow. And I got to sit there and watch them talk about how wonderful he was, and it was almost like they kind of like worshiped him almost, But my dad, he didn't care about that. So I think he'd be happy. He could celebrate all these inductions, the recognition, but he didn't need that.
Well, if people, and that's a great remembrance of your dad, Joyce, but in the exhibit there is a life-size painting. It's really beautifully done. And then one of the bats and balls that he used that Joyce loaned, and some other parts of the exhibit, these graphic wall panels, there's a great timeline. Gary Gillette, principal writer of this content, because he literally has encyclopedic knowledge of baseball. And then there are also women in black baseball. So there's this small panel that just explains and identifies who are the women in black baseball. So we try to cover the gamut. And it's just a fun experience. And you come to the museum, you just have to go through the Gallery of Culture, and you just can't miss it. And just take some time and study it.
And it's open till
September 29th.
So plenty of time to get down there.
There is, absolutely. And a lot of great programming. People can go to our website at detroithistorical.org and see the whole schedule of events. All through the summer.
Well, congratulations to all of you, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, ahead, a fundraising campaign for Detroit Public Schools. But first, here's a 1987 Detroit Black Journal conversation about racism in professional sports.
Mr. Brown, let's talk to you a little bit about racism in baseball. When this Isaiah Thomas incident blows over, the Al Campana situation is still going to be there because the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People has decided that, as Jesse Jackson called it, July 4th is going to be a day of reckoning for baseball, if you will. They're going to look at marching on some of the stadiums in an attempt to get more blacks in managerial positions and front office positions. The Tigers have just hired a young man that I went to school with to be in their front office. But what is the situation as far as you can tell as baseball is concerned, and especially the Tigers organization, which for a long time, it's no secret, at least in the black community, has been looked upon as one who did not necessarily want blacks in the organization for a very long time?
Well, I believe that, you know, it's true the Tigers was one of the last teams to have black ball players. As late as 59. Dobie, he was through when they got him, but let's say starting with 60 with Billy Buten and Jake Woods. We've had a lot of exciting, not only exciting, but good black ball players come through Detroit. I think one of the main reasons that they don't think that we're capable of doing some of the jobs that we are doing is because possibly we excel on the ball field. Now, I know one thing, that if you can think in the heat of a ball game, you know, you get up and the guy's on first base and you see a guy try to go to right field automatically without the manager having to tell him. And that's telling you right there that he's in the game, he's thinking about the game, he's trying to move the runner along. We can do a lot of things if only given the opportunity, you know, and it's been, like you said, 40 years since Jackie Robinson broke in, and we've had 1, 2 black managers, Frank Robinson, Barry Dobie for a minute, Murray Wills, but their stint have been so short. You know, you can't say 1 or 2 years, and then if you don't do it right away, you know, your chances seem like, to me, they say, well, we gave him a chance, that's it. Because there's a lot of guys that get more opportunities than that, and they're still in the game.
The Detroit Public Schools Foundation is wrapping up a crowdfunding campaign aimed at raising $300,000 for students, families, and educators in the district. The fundraiser has included pop-up events like this student jazz performance at Burt's Marketplace. The fundraising campaign will conclude with an event on June 25th at the Eastern Detroit in Eastern Market. The evening will include food trucks and door prizes. Joining me now is the head of the DPS Foundation, Pamela Moore. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. And congratulations on this really ambitious campaign.
It was an ambitious.
$300,000.
Yes.
So talk about what the DPS Foundation does.
So we were created to create opportunities for our children at DPSCD, and we do that by fundraising to fill in some of those resource gaps, as well as we manage many of the large program grants that go into the district that have been provided by foundations and corporations.
And that support is really critical to the experience that students and families and teachers have in the district. I mean, unfortunately, we just are not in a space yet where we're doing the right thing in terms of funding.
That is
DPS
correct.
Foundation fills a lot of those gaps.
That is correct. State aid funding just doesn't cover many of the things that you and I had when we came through our K-12 experience. So there are lots of gaps. From teacher professional development, we have new curriculum that's now in alignment with the state standards. Teachers need to be trained in that curriculum. To music programs, instruments, we have a camp. It's a summer STEM camp right now. We'd like to operate that camp all year. We raise money for scholarships every year. We're giving away 50 this year, as well as resources in the classroom, after-school programs, pre-K programs. We know the research says if you don't invest in pre-K and after school, you're really not going to come out with performance numbers that are ideal, and that's what Michigan is seeing right now.
So talk about the origins of this current campaign. Where'd you come up with that number?
Yeah, so, well, that was kind of our budget gap. Our fiscal year ends June 30th, and we took a look at the budget, and fundraising is difficult.
Yes,
but we've got 50,000 really good reasons to support the DPS Foundation, our children and the families. So typically, again, we get funding from foundations, corporations, the philanthropic community, but we thought, let's take this to the streets. More and more new Detroiters call us and say, hey, how can we we help? How can we get engaged? We don't have children, or our children are not yet old enough, but we want to put our children in the district. And so we're starting to get some momentum. And so we thought, let's take it to the streets, let's take it to the individual and say, you know, you've got some connection. If you've lived in Detroit, you've got some connection to the district. Someone worked in the district, you either went to the district or you live next door to a school. You have some connection with DPS. And so we thought, let's go to individuals, kind of a call to action. Let them know what's really going on. Great strides have been made by Dr. Vitti and his team. However, there are still many, many, many gaps. And so we just wanted to take the message. It's more about awareness as well as fundraising. We have gotten some grants in since we set that goal, and so we've got about an $80,000 gap right now. But we want individuals to just understand that these children are your children. If you live, work, play, worship in the city of Detroit, these children are your children, and it is in our best interest to make sure that these children are going to be okay and get a great education.
The events that you've had have featured
That's
right, the very children that we are talking about.
That's right. And we're going to have a 14-year-old DJ at this event on the 25th. Her name is Z Light, and she is phenomenal. We're going to give away Detroit Bikes. Detroit Bikes is on our board, and so it's just going to be a fun event. Again, it's about awareness. It's a $25 ticket, but we want people to kind of plug in and get engaged and understand the good work that we're doing and the help that the district needs.
You mentioned Superintendent Vitti, who's been here now, I think, 3 years.
Going on 3.
How different are things from your perspective since he came? It seems from the outside like things are settled down in a place that had been pretty chaotic under state authority for a long time. It seems like there's kind of a more consistent beat and march toward a common goal rather than fits and starts.
Absolutely. So I came 3 years ago to the foundation. The phones were not ringing.
Is that right?
We were still under state control. We did not have an elected school board, and there was no Dr. Vitti and his team. A year later, the school board was elected. They hired Dr. Vitti, and it has been a drastic change. Our phones ring. People want to know how they can partner, how they can assist. Dr. Vitti is on our board, as well as Alicia Merriweather and Angelique Peterson Mayberry, an elected member of the school board. And so we work arm in arm with the district. We stay very close to understanding what their needs are, what their priorities are, and how we can fill in those gaps. So I think it's been a huge change. His State of the School address talked about the improvements that have been made. We've got a long way to go. We are clear about that. This is a district that has been neglected for decades. State takeover, teacher salaries cut. I mean, the list is very long, and these children have suffered. And so it's time for the adults to put these children first, for us to focus on the whole child. We have to focus not only what happens in the classroom, but what happens when that child goes home. Is that home stable? We know that there's housing insecurity, there's food insecurity, and that trauma comes into the classroom, and we have to address that with health programs and training the professionals that are in the schools. And so the lift is heavy, but I think it's a worthy cause, and I think it's up to all of us to get engaged and make sure that these young people get what they deserve and the opportunities.
I mean, the list is so long of things that they need. I wonder how you guys prioritize where the money that you raise is going to go.
That's right, because we're small, we can only do so much, but we are in alignment with the district. So we have 4 buckets. We focus on early childhood and literacy, we focus on STEAM, we focus on career pathways. There's a lot happening in that space right now. And then experiences beyond the classroom, the field trips, the competitions, the professional development, the camps, the music programs, after-school programs. So yeah, that's kind of how, those are kind of our 4 buckets that we focus on, and it kind of covers everything, and we just do what we can do, and again, the momentum's there, but we want everyone to support these children and these educators that are on the front line every day, spending money out of their own pockets.
Right, to make up for what
what's not
we
there.
are not doing.
That's right.
Through the funding mechanisms.
That's right. And we're a 501c3, so your donation is tax deductible.
It's tax deductible. Yeah. All right. Anything else at the event that people should know about?
No, just come out on the 25th. It's a busy weekend. We got fireworks. We've got River Days, but it's the Tuesday after that. But just come out, have a good time. It's just going to be a fun, short evening. Just support and just understand that we need you. We need everyone, as Dr. Vitti says, to take a brick and help us rebuild this district.
Help fill that gap that you guys still have. All
Thank
right.
you, Stephen.
Thanks very much for being here,
Thank
and
you.
good luck with the event.
Thank you.
All right, that's our program for today. Go to AmericanBlackJournal.org and get more information about our guests. And you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Ally and viewers like you. Thank you.